Hey, what's up, everyone? It's Trev. I bake music as Curse Bitten, and I've got a new album coming out January 19th. So, just this past week, I put out a new single from the album. The single's titled A Great Journey of Great Hardship, and I'm super excited about it. Last time I put out a single, I did a little mix breakdown where I just worked through the Reaper project and kind of talked about my decision-making process and just what I was thinking throughout making it. I had a ton of fun making that video, and it seems like people enjoyed watching it. Hopefully people got a little bit out of it, so I thought I would do that for this. I don't really have a script or anything. We'll keep it pretty casual. Yeah, I'll just kind of play through it and talk about what I was thinking. It seems gratuitous to play the whole song and then talk about it. So I'll play like a section at a time and then kind of go back and just get into what I was thinking there. So we'll start with the intro here and just dive right in. So we'll call that the intro, and the purpose of this is one, to introduce kind of some interesting chord progressions, some interesting overall harmonic ideas, and then to slowly build dynamics and tensions, so that when we release it in this next section, it sounds really big and really natural and interesting. I think it makes sense to start off with the chord progression because it's very important, not only to the section, but kind of to the overall identity of the song. So what we have here is something that I would generally say that it resolves to A, but it's a little non-committal. It's a little ambiguous as to if it's A major or A minor. So we've got an A major chord here, and then the next chord is F major 7, then into a C major, then into an E. I think here it has the dominant 7th on it. It tends to. And what this is, the A, so A major kind of makes you think the key is going to be A major, but then F major 7 is borrowed from the parallel minor, so A minor. The parallel minor is the minor version of that key, and it has different notes. As opposed to the relative minor, it's going to have a different note that it resolves to, but the same notes as the key you're in. So of A major, the relative minor is going to be like an F sharp minor, and those share notes, whereas the parallel minor of A major is just A minor. It's a different set of notes, but the same note, the same tonic that it resolves to, that A. So we've got our A major, then we borrow that F major 7 from A minor, then we borrow a C from A minor, then we've got the E dominant 7, and I guess technically that's from A major, but typically it's very common to substitute what would normally be an E minor in A minor. You'd substitute for an E major with a dominant 7 because it leads really smoothly back into any A chord. So what we have to kind of tone that down, we have an A major, then we have something borrowed from A minor, something borrowed from A minor, and something that could be from A minor or A major. And that makes it feel, like I said, it wants to go to an A, but it's not really committing to any particular key. So it's still a little interesting and surprising when you come into this A major. That builds intrigue, that builds suspense, it builds interest. And that's something that can be really nice in a chord progression. A couple other reasons that this chord progression works. There's nice, like the notes within the chords kind of lead into each other well. So there's this E is found in all of those chords. So you've got your A major where the E is the 5th. Then you've got your F major 7 where the E is the 7. Then you've got your C major where the E is the 3rd. And then you've got your E major where the E is the 1. So right off the bat, there's this one note that's just hanging out the whole time. And that helps things stay together. And then you also have this nice, would be like a chromatic walk down. So like I said, don't worry if you're not a big theory person. Important to note, there's a note in all of these chords that's always present. And then there's also like a string of notes that are just right next to each other. So within the A major, your 3rd is the C sharp. And then as you go into the F major 7, just goes down one note to a C, then of course the C is in the C, and then that goes down just one note again to be a B in that E. So not only do you have this high E note staying there the whole time, you also have this cute little walk down of like, so you get that found in all the chords, and that helps it, I don't know, just kind of retain an identity, I guess. And even though it's using borrowed chords, they're connected smoothly. So it doesn't sound as herky-jerky out of nowhere. So that's what we have for this first chord progression. Then there's the second chord progression here as the electric organ comes in. And so what that is, it's kind of similarly sticking with this idea of not committing to A major or A minor. So it starts with an F major 7, borrowed from A minor, something taken from A minor. And then you have this E7, which we talked about that. It's kind of ambiguous. Then you have a D major, which is from A major, but then chromatically, this note from the D major just goes down 1/2 step. And we have a D minor, which is from A minor. But that chord, it's called a minor 4. It's very commonly borrowed from A minor to get back to an A major, especially when you've got a D major to a D minor to an A major. That's pretty typical. It's something that both flows smoothly and our ear expects it. So while we're doing, again, chords that it's kind of ambiguous as to where they're from, like just hearing this in isolation, the F major 7 to the E, you might think, that could be going up to an A minor there, but then introducing that D major kind of throws it off. Your brain kind of thinks, maybe we are in A major. Then I don't know. Now we've had this walk down into a D minor, but it does ultimately resolve to A major. Sorry if this is a bit of a tangent, if it's not fun to follow, but that's what's going on there. Basically, we've got collections of chords that are tied together with notes that are in common or close, and they don't commit to being from the major or minor key. So no matter what you do, you get something surprising. This is not only important for this section, it's important for a later section as it goes into the denser part as well. But we'll get into that in a second. Aside from harmony, we only have 3 voices in this section, and I think that they complement each other very well. So just thinking these ballad keys here, it's something from Contact. I don't really use Contact a ton. That's where I found these. It's nice for like a solo element or a rhythmic element. They kind of represent a lot of frequencies well. But as this organ comes in, right off, that's a tone that you don't hear in the original ballad keys part. So it's something new, which is interesting to your ear. It's also it's washy and it's taking up this higher range of frequencies. See, by itself, that doesn't really sound good by itself. There's a lot of low end missing. So what that, you want things to not ideally sound good by themselves, because that means that they're going to sound good in their frequencies without taking space in the frequencies of the other instruments. Then similarly, as the bells get added in, that's a sound that you're your brain hasn't heard yet in this song, and it's nice, it's surprising. Oh, this element's there as well. I totally didn't expect it. It really works out. Overall, we're building an intensity, so it's stripped down here. We have this little walk up, and even with this volume envelope, you can see it gets louder, like it swells into it. You have this organ with long notes, taking up space but not being very densely rhythmic. Whereas as we get into this bell part, it's a little faster there. Notes are changing quicker. This guy's still hanging out just to take up space, and it even hangs out into the next section to help tie things together. And like I said, just to take up space. It's nice. If these instruments don't take up those frequencies, it's nice when this one does. As far as note choice, with a chord progression like this, where it doesn't fall easily into a key, it can be difficult to commit to a scale. If you were to just play like an A major scale over this, you'd get a bit of clashing. So it's nice to, especially on notes that you feel the beat emphasize or land on, it's important that they tie in with the harmony, because the harmony's weird enough that it's really the only thing that will ground you. So seeing here over the A, it's notes from A major. And then as the F starts, now we go into this F here. F natural would not be found in A major, but you're playing it over an F major 7 chord, so it makes sense to have an F there. Something that if you were thinking scales and not thinking arpeggios and harmony, you maybe wouldn't run into. And it's nice for the melody to emphasize the harmony, because like I said, that's where we're finding our structure. That's the thing that our brains can grasp is the harmony. So throughout this melody here, it's not only sticking to the notes that are safe from the harmony, it's also kind of emphasizing the interesting parts of the harmony. So like, see here, that as we go from our C to our E, I mentioned that chromatic walk down earlier. We're emphasizing part of that walk down in the melody here, and then really hanging on that, which is really nice. And then similarly here, it's like the coming up to the E, we want to make sure that it's something that's going to fit with our A. Just sticking to the harmony. I don't want to say you're being too safe. I don't think that's fair, because the harmony isn't safe. So you're sounding good, and you're outlining the parts of the song that exist as they do. So I think that about wraps everything up. Interesting harmony, notes that stick with it, building the tension, building the dynamics, and making sure that your instruments are unique sounds that take up space that the other instruments don't, and making sure that your different sounds aren't competing. They're not taking up the same frequencies. They're in their own slots, which I think that these do a good job of. So let's dive into that next section. We'll just listen to it first. I want to talk. I'm so excited. Let's just listen. So we'll kind of consider that verse 1. I think that that's what makes the most sense here. And as it gets introduced, there's a ton going on. I think I've already done a bunch of harmony talks, so we'll start with that. So as I think I've made clear, this first progression, while we're taking it to an A major, A unique thing about it is that it wants to go to A, but it doesn't really care which A it goes to. Or maybe it's better said that you don't know which A it wants to go to, and either one of them is interesting and surprising. So oftentimes, if you want a key change, which is what happens here, because here we're clearly in A minor for this section. A lot of times if you want a key change, you need to add some sort of what may be called a pivot chord. So some way to ease your transition into it. But our existing chord progression in the intro is already ambiguous enough that we can go straight into A minor. And by now our ear is used to, while the progression's ambiguous, it's expecting to go back to that A major. And then we hit it with the A minor, and it's totally justified, but it's seemingly out of nowhere because of what we've had, because of the context. And that's very exciting. And we even kind of, preempt this key change with a melody here. So that's an A minor melody that has the, it's got the F there. It feels very distinctly A minor. And then that leads into the A minor here. It's very exciting. Aside from the harmony, we're really picking up the pace. So see less time in between notes, like a more melodically, rhythmically busy lead melody, as well as like thicker, denser instrumentation in general. So a lot more frequencies being taken up, more voices, like different sounds wedged in together. I think kind of talking about maybe what I would consider the rhythm section first makes sense. So we've got our ballad keys kind of outlining that's like the backbone of it. Our progression here, by the way, is I think it's A minor to a G and then to a D minor. So like I said, we're clearly in A minor now, and then a little borrowed chord, that E7, but as I mentioned, it's super common to use an E, like a major, an E dominant 7, to get back to your minor 1 chord. Even though with the notes in the key it would be an E minor, it just builds up the tension. It's very natural to do that. So we've got a chord progression that's very clearly A minor is what's important here. Looking at the rhythm, I would say kind of the key like backdrop rhythmic elements here. We've got a kick, we've got, I call it clap and stick, and then classical guitar. So we can start with classical guitar. This one, there's one every quarter note, just kind of keeping time, but as a classical guitar, so also offering harmony to kind of match what's going on with the other instruments to help outline the chords as well. That sounds like this. Very straightforward. And then we introduce clap and stick, which is from the Opia percussion kit. Opia from Spitfire is super cool. I use it all the time. And the percussion kit's super cool. So here it's kind of a blend of this stick, click, and then clap. And what that's doing is it's just staying on the 2, kind of hitting the backbeat. It's consistent. It's on the 2 this whole time. And this idea of a backbeat, it's important to the song. It gives it like a very structured feel. It sounds natural and dancey, and it lets elements that aren't as rhythmically consistent have something consistent to play off of, so you're not just getting lost in the mess. You want your backbeat to be kind of sharp and take up space in the mix. A battle that I always go through, I don't really like a drum kit sound in the curse bit and stuff. I think within the genre, I probably prefer Dungeon Synth to not have a drum kit sound, although some artists do it really well. That's not what I see in the curse bit and Vision. But drum kits, they're designed to make sense for what drums should be doing. So you get, I don't know, a lot of difficulty getting rid of that because you still want those roles fulfilled. So a snare would typically be on the backbeat, it would be on the 2, and also on the 4 typically. but just providing that consistency and taking up space when used like this. And so here with clap and stick, I'm kind of trying to find something to do that role without sounding just like a snare, because a snare, it doesn't have, I guess, the mental associations with what I want to get with the music. Maybe a bit of tangent there. That might come up more though. Similarly with the kick, I don't want like a rock kick from a drum kit. So what I've got here is this E-ring drum. If you're not familiar, E-ring is like my favorite Dungeons and Synth artists. They're so good. They have these packs of samples, a ton of stuff that you can use, a bunch of percussion, and I like the way that this sounds for a kick. See, it does that kick roll, but it doesn't sound exactly, doesn't sound exactly like a rock kick, and that's nice. And kind of because of the structure that the guitar being on every quarter note and the clap stick always being on the 2, so see, that's very consistent. Lets us have fun with the kick. The kick is something you can really play around with and move it around, and it's okay. So we do that here. Kind of doing fill type of stuff at the end. And even going into the next section, there's like I don't know, it's nice. Fills really lead in well there. So that's what's kind of maybe what you would consider like a rhythm section or a percussion section. There's also this opia kind of doing a bass sort of thing here. Just doing octaves, so a note and then the higher version of that note. Doing them nice and low. I love the way that the opia takes up space. So I don't know, it's dense in all the right ways, and it because there's a bit of wiggle room in the pitch, I feel like it sounds just nice and synthy. It works with Dungeons and so well. So you can hear that. And again, that's not lining up with the kick. That's always on the downbeat. It's nice to help establish the downbeat there while you're also taking up frequencies that weren't otherwise being taken up in the mix. That covers a lot of this. I guess we can kind of get into the melody. So it starts out with this marimba melody. I mentioned that it's faster. With this, because the chords behind it aren't so particular, you can have a little more fun playing around within the scale, and there's not going to be as many sour notes because it's all within the same key, so most everything's going to sound good. But we're still thinking about the harmony in our melody, especially and this is kind of weird to describe, but the notes that are emphasized by the beat are going to be like the notes that maybe fall on downbeats or strong beats, you could say, are going to be more likely tied to the harmony that they're over, like something like this. But yeah, generally pulling important notes from the harmonies, we're allowing scales to influence a little bit more faster, more aggressive melody than in that intro. And I think that's about how we get this. As we move into the next section of this verse, the lead melody is this toy keyboard sound. That's something from Sample Science, which is a pretty cool company that has free VSTs. This is a case where, like, if you were trying to to optimize how listenable a song is, I probably wouldn't pick this as your lead sound. But I think it sounds fun. I think it's kind of wonky. A lot of the genre is about having fun with tone and texture and making suboptimal choices. So that's how we get this. Maybe something to point out, these two verse melodies, they're different melodies, but they have they have similar ideas behind them. They don't sound completely unrelated, you know? See, there's some ideas that are kind of shared there, I guess. One last thing, as this second section comes in, we don't want to get boring and we want to build the intensity. So I just introduced this mandolin here. It's not doing anything crazy. It's outlining the chords, and really it's just providing mandolin. It's I don't know. It's like adding pickles to a sandwich that didn't have it. You can't say I needed pickles. It's just, we got pickles now. That's something different. And it's important to have something different and to add layers as things get denser. It's especially nice because mandolin like this mandolin sound hasn't really been represented. Like, you haven't really had something with this timbre, and you're getting rid of the cleaner marimba sound and substituting it with the harsher toy keyboard sound. So it's nice to add something cleaner to still kind of take up what may be taken away as we switch lead voices there. Then as we begin this next section, kind of lost myself. One last thing, and I talked about this a bit in the previous video. We've got this swell here. I love using SQ8L for just random swells to take up space. So if you listen to it by itself, it's nothing crazy, but in the mix it just kind of takes up space. It's not a note you want to resolve to, so it adds a bit of tension, and it helps connect this section to that section, which is it's important. It's important that while your sections sound distinct, they don't sound like two totally different things hamstrung together, I guess. So yeah, that eases the transition. I think that this covers that first verse. It's time to check out what I would consider the chorus next. So I'll play a little bit of the verse going into it so you can really capture what's happening. So I think big picture there, what's going on, we've gotten a slow build in the intro, and then we become very dense, getting denser throughout the verse. And then instead of continuing that, we let it go, and we make sure all of the frequencies are being represented and taken up, but there's way more breathing room here. And that contrast just blows this song open and provides just an interesting shift there. So feel how dense this has gotten now. There's so much going on, and then just all this room to breathe and everything in the rhythm. Now it's so this Opie is doing rhythm now, doing chords. Way less busy there, and even the lead melody. See, just more space. And because there's more space, you're allowed to change things with texture. I add a little delay to the classical guitar here. I use classic guitar light. I think that's from Quiet Sounds. They're great. For delay, I love this floaty delay from JS. I think it'll be a stock plugin with Reaper. I like the little bit of warp to it. I like having a filter cutoff to kind of change like frequencies being filtered. And the thing that really sells me on it is the tempo sync. I come from like a big guitar live music background, playing lead electric, and tempo sync delay is so fun. It's such a fun way to take up space and to fill in holes in your sound, and you can really hear that here. See, you don't have like a 4/4 or a 1/8 delay. It's it's nice. It's something that gets me excited. Oh, and then the gong. The gong is so important. How could I forget? So this is from Sample Science as well. And it's just a gong. There's one button. There's one thing going on. It's a big, spacey, reverby gong. And I love how much space that takes up. And it makes it sound active while still sounding open as the section starts. And that's really cool to me. And then notice this comes in on the downbeat, whereas later on, the second gong doesn't come in on the downbeat. So we'll check out right there. And then down. Just something to add a little bit of variety to it. Kind of keeps it interesting. It's nice to keep the listener on their toes. This progression's just another kind of chords from A minor, nothing crazy. It does end. We want to get back into like an A minor chord. So it does this A without a third that's kind of here, let me, oh yeah, we got it. So it's like that with the E up top. So it's not committing to the A, kind of like I've said that like 100 times now. But that no third and then suspended, so that D wants to go somewhere, but it could go major or it could go minor, and that just makes it sound really nice when we get back into A minor for section 2, because you get the nice, oh, it's like a walk down, but it also wants to resolve really strongly, and then we're back in A minor. And that's probably a good time to play out the next section, so let's check it out. So overall, that's a verse 2. It's not going to be too different from verse 1, but there's a lot going on, and it's built a lot, and it's nice that we're able to open up for the chorus and then build more heavily in verse 2. It makes it feel a little more impactful, and it makes that denser verse 2 really hit you because it's coming from a more spacious area. I guess there's a couple key concepts for this part. I'll start off with this tambourine that I introduced. Tambourine's a great way to take up space, to sound nice within the genre. You can use it in a lot of roles. It can get like the big snare sound, or it can kind of be a little more laid back, like a bit like a hi-hat or something. Here the tambourine is emphasizing the important kick notes. So thinking like, kind of lines up there. And then as we go into the second section, we get a tambourine on all of the quarter notes. And that transition into taking up all the space really helps the second part sound bigger. And a little trick with the tambourine, in anything like this, so it can sound very mechanical. So say I want tambourine on every 8th note, and like I don't have, like I have my tambourine, I would probably like copy it and then, not like that, but put it on all the 8th notes, but then they're all, they're going to sound similar. So to add a little variety, to make it sound more like a human's playing it, I press H on the MIDI, you get this humanize tool. I use this all the time. You can set how much you want to add variation to both timing and velocity. And now things aren't being hit exactly as hard. The velocity's changing and it's a little more human-like. I do that for like the ballad keys part as well up top, just to make it sound a little less robotic. Working with MIDI, it's easy to take away a bit of that human element. So I like that. And then you can also like dump random notes. And let's see. Yeah, like that. It's just nice. You don't expect the note to be dumped, and it lets whatever's behind it really kind of stand out. Yeah, so that's what's going on with percussion there. Not a ton has been changed in the rest of the instrumentation, but it's important to talk about this idea of melodic development. So maybe we'll start with a little soloing and contrasting, but in general, you don't just want to copy paste the melody. It's a little boring. It sounds a little repetitive. The ear's not going to be too crazy. It may lose interest if you're just doing the same melody as the song goes on. So you can kind of change it and develop it. You don't necessarily want a whole new melody. So this is the original. And we want to take that identity and spice it up while keeping the identity. One way to spice things up are to use higher notes, which is something I utilize a lot here. You can also maybe add some more notes in so it's a little rhythmically denser. Even with this lead in here, instead of the lead in, we substitute that here with, see, it kind of goes up there. Just a ton of things like that to make things more interesting. So see, we're going up. And that's a good way to, like I said, keep the identity, keep it coming from the same place, but make it more interesting, add more energy, add more intensity by adding some higher notes, some different rhythm. Similarly with the toy keyboard part, yeah, we kind of do the same thing. So check out the original one. Compared to so we're going up, getting higher than we have at any other point in the song with this instrument. Yeah, and that last note's a great example of we go into a G sharp there because, as I mentioned, there's that borrowed chord. It's a common borrowed chord, but it's a borrowed chord of the E7, and it's emphasizing that out of key but in arpeggio note there, and it sounds nice. It sounds tense. It also helps solidify the role of that chord, which is to resolve to some sort of A minor or something, and it's nice. It's just nice. Yeah, so, maybe one more thing. So here with the mandolin trem, to add a little bit of variety and difference and sound a little more like we're building, I kept the mandolin going for the beginning of this next section. Similar to the swell, which I also kept in. It helps tie things together, keeps it interesting. So yeah, let's check out that next section. Alright, so keeping with the same idea, we open things up, we cut back on a lot of the rhythmic density that we've been building to. So we totally cut the tams out, no more tambourine, and then similar to before, exactly the same as before, we have more space between our rhythmic elements. But I still want to do a little bit of melodic development here. I want to keep it a little interesting, so we did add some notes to that lead guitar line. So contrast that with a little more space here. Ding, dong. See, that's pretty empty versus just a little something to build and to change. And like I've said a lot, keeping the original concept, but spicing it up a little bit. Otherwise, this is just another chorus. Some stuff's a little louder, but melody's a little more developed. But that's about it. Otherwise, it's similar to the first chorus. Though the ending is kind of interesting. So here, I wanted to really justify that major part in the beginning, this kind of A major-y section. I wanted to tie it together and not have that just be lost as an intro. I wanted to be a little more established as a core part of the song. But we have this difficulty of previously in the first chorus, it ends and it feels natural, even with that suspension, because it's so heavily immersed in A minor at this point. It wants to go back to A minor. It's a little abrupt to go straight into that A major chord that the intro starts with. So kind of like a resourceful way that I found around that is I added things structurally, like from a form perspective, you would call this a tag. At least in popular music, you'd call it a tag. So as this chorus ends, we get this section. And this, the melody's just kind of there to not abruptly end and to sound fine along with the chords. But what the chords are doing is we have this tense guy here, so like an E chord. So I've said this a bunch, but our E chord is going to want to go to some sort of A, and then we go here to an A suspended, so our notes are A, D, and A. So there's not even a fifth there. And it makes kind of similar to that suspended chord we used earlier. We're in A minor, and then we do something that wants to resolve to an A. We do this E, and then we do resolve to something with A as the root, but it's a non-committal A suspended. And instead of, kind of the way to think of it is instead of saying it's major or minor, it just doesn't do either and occupies that role with this 4 here. But then we let enough time pass by doing this swell. So we have a lap steel here, and then this big woolly SQ8L, and that just further swells in on an A suspended chord. And the fact that it's swelling kind of rectifies the fact that we don't have any new interesting harmonic things going on for a few seconds, because like texturally and dynamically things are changing, and our little brain can at least latch onto that and still be happy. So we kind of get lost in it. So it wants to go to A, and then we know we're in some A that wants to go somewhere, and then we're kind of so preoccupied with the swelling that we forget how badly it wanted to go to A minor originally with this very A minor progression, because we've hung out in the A suspended land for so long. Brain kind of like, oh, the A suspended, it wants to go somewhere, but it's not so obvious if it needs to go to major or minor. So by the time we go to this A major here, it's a little more justified. Our brain's just happy to be back to an A, I suppose. So altogether, that section sounds like this. And there we go. We let the thick little vibey swells take us away. And this doesn't resolve, which just fits. It's nice to add that big question mark to the end. And then while that doesn't resolve, this sort of A-ish thing is what we end on. And it feels, I don't know, feels resolved enough to end a song, but it still kind of has the question mark on it, and I appreciate that in it. And yeah, that's the breakdown on the new single. If you want to check it out all together and you haven't, it's all the places you listen to music. You can stream it on like Apple Music and Spotify, and it's on Bandcamp, and it's on this YouTube channel, so check it out there. yeah, that was really fun. I love doing this type of stuff. I really hope that despite being a little scatterbrained, there's still plenty to take away from it. And yeah, album comes out soon. I'm recording this January 16th and the album's out January 19th. It's so close. I'm so excited. It's 11 tracks. It's about 35 minutes and I worked super hard on it. So maybe if you like this, check it out. My feelings aren't hurt if you don't, though. It'll be okay. Yeah, this is all subjective, so if you have any disagreements, or if there's just something that like I wasn't super clear on, feel free to reach out to me wherever. And yeah, I love talking theory. I love talking songs, so I don't know, we can hash it out. All right, thanks so much, everyone. Thanks for listening. Take care.